The last time I spoke to my mom, she was on the couch watching our home videos and said, "I hope you know I did my best with what I had." I just hugged her and said, "I know, but now I wish I had told her that her best was more than enough." The last real conversation I had with my mom happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember that because Tuesdays were usually the day I called her just to check in, nothing major. But that week, I decided to swing by and help her clean out the hallway closet. She'd been talking about it for months, but never actually touched it. Every time I visited, it was still stuffed to the brim. She always gave the same excuse: "I'll get to it this weekend." She never did. She opened the door for me like always, wearing one of her old t-shirts with paint stains from when she redid the bathroom in 2004. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and whatever soup she had simmering on the stove. She looked tired. Not sick, not frail, just worn in the way people look when they've been doing everything by themselves for too long. We started on the closet right after lunch. I expected it to be a 2-hour thing. Instead, it turned into an accidental trip down memory lane. Winter coats I hadn't seen since high school. A pair of my old rollerblades that I swear I gave to Goodwill. Even a broken umbrella we both stared at and laughed because it once turned inside out in the middle of a storm, and she cursed so loud a neighbor peeked out their window. But near the bottom was a box labeled tapes. Just a marker scribble on a ripped piece of masking tape. I knew what they were. Home videos. I had taken most of them and digitized them a year earlier for her birthday. I'd put everything on DVDs and a USB stick, trying to make it easier for her to access. She'd thanked me, but I don't think she ever watched them until that day. After we were done with the closet, I was folding towels on the couch, and she walked into the living room holding one of the DVDs. She looked at me and said, "Do you mind if we watch some of these?" I told her no, of course not. I put one in. The screen lit up with that old shaky footage from my 7th birthday party. I was screaming about cake. My cousin was crying because I got the bike he wanted. My mom was off-screen, laughing. You could hear it, that soft, almost tired laugh she always had. Not fake, just worn. We watched for a while. She didn't say much, just sipped her coffee and stared at the screen. I kept folding clothes. And then, while I was mid-fold on one of her sweaters, she spoke. Not loud, not dramatic, just soft, like she wasn't even sure I could hear her. She said, "I hope you know I did my best with what I had." I looked over. She wasn't crying. She wasn't smiling either. She had that far-off stare people get when they're not really looking at anything. It was the kind of sentence people say when they're trying to forgive themselves. I didn't know what to do with it. I walked over, sat next to her, and wrapped my arm around her. She leaned into me a little, just enough. I said, "I know." That was it. She nodded, kept watching the screen. We never talked about it again. I didn't realize it would be the last time we had a moment like that. I thought I'd have another chance. Another time to say what I should have said right then. Because here's the truth. I didn't really understand what she meant until after she was gone. She passed away 12 days later. It was a Sunday morning. I got a call from our neighbor, Mrs. Langley. My mom hadn't picked up her paper, and her porch light was still on. I didn't panic right away. She used to forget the light all the time. But when I drove over, the second I saw her car in the driveway and the curtains still drawn, I knew something was wrong. She was still in bed. Peaceful. No sign of pain. No hospital, no machines, no chance to say goodbye. Just gone. The autopsy said it was heart failure. Quiet. Sudden. They said she probably didn't even wake up. The funeral was small. She never liked big crowds. Just family, a few old friends, neighbors. I gave the eulogy because no one else wanted to. I kept it simple. Said she worked hard. Said she loved fiercely. Said she gave everything, even when she had almost nothing. But even as I said those words, I couldn't stop thinking about that sentence. I hope you know I did my best with what I had. She'd said it like it wasn't enough. And I realized maybe she never believed she was enough. She used to tell me stories about her 20s. How she wanted to travel. How she'd applied for jobs she never got. How money always ran out before the month did. I used to roll my eyes at those stories. I didn't get it. I thought she was just reminiscing, trying to connect. But she was grieving. Even then. Quietly. For the life she couldn't have because she chose to raise me alone. My dad left when I was 4. No calls, no checks. Nothing. She never badmouthed him. She just moved forward. Worked 2 jobs for a while. Took night classes she never finished. Showed up to every school event, even when it meant leaving work early and risking her hours. And I complained about everything. About cheap shoes. Off-brand cereal. Not having my own room. I was a kid. I didn't know better. But part of me wonders if she carried those complaints for years. If she thought they meant she'd failed me. A week after the funeral, I was cleaning out her bedroom. Found a box under her bed. Letters. Mostly ones I'd written to her as a kid. Crayon scrawls. Thank you for dinner. You're the best mom ever. One was a Mother's Day card I made out of printer paper. I was 7. Inside I'd written, I'm sorry for yelling and I love you even when I'm mad. She kept them all. There was also a photo tucked inside. Not of me, of her. Younger. Early 20s, I think. She was at the beach, holding a beer, smiling like someone who still believed things were going to get easier. That's what hit me the hardest. She gave all that up. That girl in the photo. She turned into the woman who stayed up all night, sewing my Halloween costume from scratch because we couldn't afford to buy one. And yet the last thing she said to me, really said, was that she hoped her best was good enough. I said I know, because I thought that was the right thing. But it wasn't enough. A few days after I found that box, I got a call from a woman named Diane. I didn't recognize the name. She said she used to work with my mom years ago at the clinic. They hadn't spoken in a while, but she'd heard about the funeral from someone else. She told me something I didn't know. Apparently, my mom had once been offered a promotion. It would have meant more hours, more responsibility, more money, double what she was making at the time. But she turned it down. Diane said she was shocked when it happened. Your mom was sharp. Everyone knew it. She could have run that place if she wanted. I asked her why my mom turned it down. There was a pause. She said you needed her home. After school. For dinners. For homework. That if she took the job, she'd be working till 8 most nights, and you'd be alone. I hung up and just sat there for a long time, holding the phone like it might ring again. She never told me that. I had no idea. All those nights, she made dinner from scratch. Even when money was tight, she could have been making twice as much. She chose me. Over and over, she chose me. And I didn't even notice. I started digging more. I found her old calendar planner in a drawer by the fridge. Every square was filled. Work shifts, grocery runs, school meetings, bills due. But also, pick up art supplies, school project. Bake sale, check ingredients. Movie night W/my name. Even when she was drowning in things to do, she still made time for the little stuff. I remember once, I had forgotten I signed up to bring cupcakes to class. I told her at 9 p.m. the night before. She didn't yell. She didn't scold. She just sighed, grabbed her keys, and drove to the 24-hour grocery store. I fell asleep waiting for her. Woke up the next morning to a tray of slightly crooked but perfectly frosted cupcakes on the counter. At the time, I thought that was normal. I thought that's just what moms did. I didn't realize that was her staying up half the night after working a 10-hour shift. That was her best. And it was everything. She never asked for much. Just that I remember she tried. And now that I know what that really meant, the job she turned down, the dinner she made, the way she held every part of our life together with tape and tired hands, I'd give anything to go back to that couch, look her in the eye, and say it plain. Your best wasn't just enough. It was more than I ever understood. But I waited too long. And now, every time I watch those old videos, I hear her voice in the background, laughing softly, and I can't help thinking, she never got to know how much I saw her. And it's too quiet to fix now.